and welcome back to the Warwick F1 show. This week, obviously, we are looking at the Austrian Grand Prix, a weekend of a sprint race that I think many people thought perhaps the best thing of the season, maybe even of the season, but definitely of the weekend. And then obviously we jumped into the race as well. Max Verstappen winning both the sprint and the actual race. Ferrari having a better race. Charles Leclerc coming into second. Carlos Sainz finishing fourth, but then obviously the big talking point of the weekend being relegated to sixth with all the track limit infringements. We'll be discussing that. Were the track limits too harsh? Do they need to be reviewed for next season? Obviously, there are a lot of other stories to dive into, and I can't do it alone. So I'm joined today by other Will. I guess it's now just the two Wills. Chinmay is in Scotland. He couldn't join us today, so the Wills have overtaken the podcast. And how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. It's nice to go into like the summer holidays almost with the uni results coming back soon. So stressful time of year, but
oh yeah, right. We'll be fine. It's not about results today. It's
no.
about the F1. Obviously, we normally start giving the race out of 10, but maybe we'll go for the weekend out of 10 this time because obviously we did have that sprint race coming into it on the Saturday, the sprint Saturday, as it's now known. So, what would you give the weekend overall out of 10?
I think a solid 9. I think the only thing stopping it from being a 10 was like a shock podium. I think everything else was like the weather. It had the suspense in the race on, well, other than for the lead, but there was kind of battles the whole way through, like will they, won't they catch? And it was just good racing as well. Like there was nothing you could really complain about.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably go 8 out of 10. I think it is just that battle for the front. Max Verstappen being so dominant that it's sort of taken away from the season. Maybe we'll discuss in a little bit how it's making it a bit boring to watch. But no, 8 out of 10, good weekend, especially the sprint as well. So we'll run through the finishing order before we then do dive in to obviously everything that happened on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So Max Verstappen, as we mentioned, taking his 7th win of the season, 5th win in a row. Didn't lead all the laps this time, but did have a very dominant display and did take that fastest lap as well. Charles Leclerc coming in second place, his first return to the podium since Baku. Sergio Perez recovering from his qualifying in starting all the way down in 15th to finish 3rd. Then, obviously, we did have different finishing order to the final classification, and we'll come on to why that was. But Lando Norris taking, I think, McLaren's best result of the season in 4th place. Those upgrades seemingly working pretty well. Fernando Alonso and Carlos Sainz making it a Spanish 5th and 6th. And then George Russell and Lewis Hamilton in 7th and 8th place. Lance Stroll in the other Aston Martin finishing in 9th, going on a slightly different strategy and gaining 2 points for the Aston Martin team. Pierre Gasly rounding out the top 10 for the Alpine outfit. Then we had Alex Albon, Guan Yu Zhou, and Logan Sargent with his best performance of the season. Esteban Ocon down in 14th, didn't finish there, but again, we'll discuss why that was in a bit. Valtteri Bottas in 15th. Oscar Piastri did finish in 16th, but didn't have those upgrades that Lando Norris did. So perhaps that is the explanation for the difference there. Nick De Vries, Kevin Magnussen, and Yuki Tsunoda in 17th, 18th, and 19th. And then the only non-classification, Nico Hülkenberg in 20th. And the driver in 20th, Nico Hülkenberg, is probably the biggest story of the sprint race that we did have this weekend. And I think it's fair to say that sprint race was brilliant. It was brilliant entertainment.
Yeah, it was entertaining from start to finish. I think you had like the teammate battle at the start, and then you had the will he won't he of Hulkenberg getting a podium, which was sadly taken away from us. But it was entertaining the whole way through with the weather and the tire changes, and yeah, I think that race was what everyone hoped these sprint weekends would bring, that kind of different element. If you had something go wrong on the Friday or the Saturday, you'd get something slightly different.
Yeah, and I mean it was just exactly what you'd want for a sprint race. Let's say you had normal qualifying at 2 o'clock. It would have been sort of wet dry. I'm sure it would have been entertaining, but we prefer to see racing during that period, especially when it's going from wet to dry, and especially with how it went from wet to dry. in right at the end with those 6 laps, it would almost like the strategies were basically aligned with one another, as it was about the same to stay on wet tires as it was to go from wet to dries right at the end. And that made it so exciting and genuinely, I think, as you say, what we want the sprint race to be.
Yeah, I think had it been a normal race or like a normal race length, everyone would just have pitted and gone onto those dry tires straight away. But I think because it was that short, kind of, you won't necessarily get the time back from it. It made that gamble a bit more exciting. I think that was probably Ferrari's only mistake of the weekend, was probably pitting Leclerc. I think maybe leaving him there probably would have picked up some more points, but I think to go with the pack was probably the better idea in their heads anyway.
Yeah, and some of the biggest talking points obviously were right at the start with that Verstappen and Perez opening lap duel. I mean, what are your thoughts on it? Because it seemed a bit to and fro in terms of who was at fault for various points of the first half.
Yeah, I mean, I have no issue with it. It's what we all want to see, a bit of argy-bargy racing. There's a bit of entertaining. The first time we've actually seen anyone kind of go head-to-head with Verstappen for a while, which was nice to see. But I think Checo kind of instigated it, didn't he? Basically, he knew exactly where Max was and was very happy just to ram him off the road, basically.
Yeah, I mean, Verstappen squeezing Perez into the wall at turn one. Obviously, that is something we see at this track and at other tracks as well. Then up out of turn one, we did have Perez squeezing Verstappen onto the grass, and then Verstappen returning the favour at turn three at the top of the hill, sort of doing his traditional dive. If you don't let me through, we'll crash. And I guess that's maybe the one that I sort of take issue with, because it's very MO of Max Verstappen. The sort of, I'm not going to give you any room on the outside if you don't let me through, if you don't give me the opportunity to pass, then we're just going to end up colliding.
It is, but I think from my perspective, that the gap is there to go down. Like, if you know Max is behind you, and you know this is something he's capable of, don't leave that gap for him to go down, because you know he'll take that opportunity. He's a very ruthless driver, so it might be that you sacrifice you have to go down the inside line, sacrifice your corner. But you know, if you leave that gap there, he is going to send it, and ultimately, you know that you're going to have to cede that position to him.
Yeah, I think that is fair. Obviously, you've got to adapt your style to who you're driving against, and Max Verstappen isn't going to be compromising, and he took the lead back, fed off into the race or to the race win. And Perez couldn't match him because he was held up by at least my driver of the day for the sprint, Nico Hulkenberg, who,
Yeah.
if that half didn't eat its tires up like there was no tomorrow, it would genuinely be a brilliant car.
If every race was a wet, greasy race on slick inters, it would be the best car on the grid.
I mean, it's just now in qualifying, he was what? Well, he was top. He was front row in Canada before his penalty. He was like top 4 in the sprint, and he's having a brilliant season so far.
But,
And he was doing fairly well in the actual race as well until obviously he retired.
yeah, I mean, he's been in Q3 more times than Sergio Perez. So that's all you need to know, I think, about Hulkenberg and Perez this season, to be honest. But
Yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, the half just seems to eat its tires. But if it didn't do that, and that's why, I mean, that maybe is why it does so well in qualifying. It can get those tires heated up so quickly. It can do like basically one out lap and then straight away have its tires ready for one lap. And in wet conditions, which we've seen a lot of in qualifying, at least for the past few races, it's been a while since we have had a dry qualifying or a qualifying that hasn't been like at risk of rain. That is crucial, getting those tires fired up, getting those laps in, and when your competitors trip over themselves, you're starting like top 4, top 3, even top 2.
But yeah, I think as well as if you look at the tracks where they've been, it's been short tracks. So on like these longer circuits like Baku, where I don't think Haas had their best weekend, it's those tyres where by the end of the lap, those tyres are gone. It's those tracks where like they eat up the tyres. You have to save them. And in the Haas, you just can't do that. Like you'll get to like the last turn in Baku, have no traction, and you're basically out of qualifying. Whereas somewhere like Austria, where although it is quite hard on tyres, like normally in the wet weather with a short layout, you'll be all right around one lap.
Yeah. And I mean, it got shown later in the race, obviously when he did get overtaken by by Perez, by Sainz, and then was about to get overtaken by the two Aston Martins before he dived in to pit for soft or for dry tires. He almost got them right at the end, and I think that was the part of the race that was so exciting. Obviously, maybe at the front, the first two, three positions, it wasn't that entertaining, but having those dry runners sort of coming up to the back of the inter runners, would they catch them? Would they not? That's almost it's something we've not seen for a really, really long time in F1, sort of that unpredictability. Maybe you look back to Russia 2021 as the best example of that, but then even then it was proved that like going on to the wets was definitely the correct strategy.
Yeah, it reminded me a bit of an IndyCar race in the sense that you get like these split strategies on like the primaries and the option or whatever they're called again, where you have like these drivers at the end that are on these faster tires coming back that they've suffered the pain almost and are coming back, or maybe an F2 when you have the alternate strategy where they start on the harder tires and you see them coming back through the grid. It was a bit more entertaining. Like there was that suspense of you don't know what that result will be. Like it's not just about the pace of the car, it's about the strategy as well.
Yeah, and I mean the driver that probably won out the most out of it was George Russell. He took that risk and it did end up paying off, managing to jump his teammate, jump a number of other cars, and almost getting Pierre Gasly, oh no, Esteban Ocon, sorry, on the line. And it's always fun to see a photo finish right at the end. We had one in Canada, obviously with Stroll and Bottas, and now we've had one with Ocon and Russell as well.
Yeah, I mean, what's not to love? It's like you don't know until it's fully classified. It keeps people there. You'll watch the podium just to find out what the actual result is. And yeah, I mean, George Russell Mercedes had a mixed Saturday, to be honest. I think they locked in with their strategy, but George Russell did well to come back. Like, it was obviously tricky conditions. It wasn't fully dry, and to have the confidence to kind of put your foot down and make those positions up was good. But it was, again, a good call by Merck to actually bring him in.
Yeah, I mean Russell starting 15th and unable to run in Q2 or SQ2. And Lewis Hamilton may only getting 18th on the grid after he was maybe blocked by Max Verstappen going for his second flying lap. I mean, what were your thoughts on that? Because I didn't watch sprint qualifying, but from what I've seen on like Twitter and stuff, it does seem a bit iffy in how Verstappen maybe didn't get a penalty for that.
It's a bit iffy, but I would also say Lewis was like, if Max had got one, Lewis would have had one because
Yeah, I think
Max,
that's what I've
because
sort of worked out.
Max's argument is that he needed to run again because Lewis ruined his lap by parking his car in the last corner, and then Lewis will say, "You ruined my lap because you overtook me into turn one." So I think it's both. Had one gone to the stewards, the other would have been they're going to get a penalty as well. And so it's a tricky one.
I mean, do you think maybe both of them they should both get a penalty and like rather than it just being tit for tat or you've done this, you've done that, we're going to cancel everything out. It's more of you've done something wrong, so we've got to penalize both of you in a way, which I think
I think they were both equally penalised. Like Lewis lost his lap effectively, and Max had his ruined. So like they've both had that penalty in a sense. They both had multiple opportunities to get that lap time in. As saw Max managed to finish top of that session, whereas Lewis was complaining that his team sent him out at the wrong time because he spent too little time on his outlap. So it's a case of Lewis having a weekend where he moaned way too much to his team rather than just accepting some blame for once, which I think is my main issue with him. Is like I don't have an issue with him as a person or kind of he's a great driver, but the reason I've never warned him is because he can never accept responsibility for a fault. Like, he will never be that person that says, I am stupid, like Charles Leclerc will.
Yeah. Okay. We'll dive. We may as well dive into the race now. I think we've covered everything in the sprint. I mean, personally, it was the most enjoyable session of the year for me, including races.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I think it was a good event from like start to finish. You can't really go wrong with it. Bit of weather, bit of dry running. It was good. Good around.
It was just really good F1, and we need more of it in the
Although I think
races. And
the quali session as well was also quite good in the morning.
yes,
I did enjoy that quali session.
I think qualifying at Austria is always pretty interesting because obviously with track limits, and we'll now come on to it, I think it's the biggest story of the weekend. Track limits around Austria. It's something that we do see every year. It's something that we saw last year, but this year it seemed like it was bigger than ever, more spoken about, and obviously more spoken about because we did have that decision after the race and the protest by Aston Martin that some incidents, some deleted lap times hadn't been considered. And then the stewards went back, looked at it, and gave a number of drivers additional penalties. And I mean, what do you think? I mean, it just seems
it's a really tricky one because I think Crofty made a really good point because Ted was moaning about it all weekend, and Crofty went, "Okay, Ted, we'll go to Wimbledon. We'll say every time the ball goes outside the white lines, we'll call it in still. Like the track is there to set the boundaries. The only thing that I would say you could look at doing is like qualifying. I have no issue with it. I think you could stay in the track limits. That's fine. You have no excuse to be out of it. In the race, you do get that turbulent outwash and like from following a car. So I think maybe if you're in a DRS range, for example, it shouldn't apply. Or there should be a second white line that you have to stay within or something, which gets a bit complicated. But having 1,200 track limit things at one, it was only 9 and 10, I think, in the race as well. They were monitoring.
Well, I didn't. Yeah, so I'm assuming this 1,200 thing must have been from the entire track because
probably.
Obviously they were because I think it was Crofty and I think Anthony Davidson this weekend. They were obviously saying when people went off at turn 4, that would be that would be a sort of deleted.
It was when Lando Norris went wide at turn 3 that he had a track limit violation come up.
But it is a very odd one, and like it always seems to be Austria where this is the biggest issue, and I completely agree in that in qualifying it's done perfectly. You can't be gaining time off the track. I mean, and we saw drivers, or one particular driver in Sergio Perez, didn't get a single lap time in Q2 and then had to start 15th. And if you don't get a lap time in, then you can't expect to be able to go off the track and benefit from it. But in the race, like 1,200 violations, I think. So what? There were 71 drivers 71 laps, 20 drivers. That's about 1,400 like total laps. If I've done the maths right, which means that on like it was almost one per driver per lap.
Pretty much.
In a way.
But you think Esteban Ocon had like 10?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what Ocon was doing. Like, that man was just cutting corners left, right, and centre.
It's just, I saw it cut. I was like 30 seconds. I don't think he even got one in the race, did he?
No, he got none in the race. That was the first thing. Obviously the document came out. I had a quick look at it. I was like, I mean, Ocon got 30 seconds worth of time penalty.
It's embarrassing.
But yeah, why is it such a big issue at Austria in particular? Why do we not have this issue at other tracks? Is it just the corners? Is it?
I think it's
something
the
else?
nature of the last 2 corners, because you want to carry as much speed through there for the next straight as possible, and if you don't, you're going to be vulnerable. And it's downhill, like there's some camber, it's a bit tricky, and I get that it's hard, but it like Lewis complained that he couldn't get the car to go around it. Like, well, then use your brake
Yeah,
more, slow down a bit. Like, it's not difficult. Like, you do it everywhere else. Why can't you do it here?
no,
I think it's just
I,
there's so much time to
mean,
gain.
I mean, I personally, I didn't have any issue with drivers getting penalties for it. They are meant to be the 20 best drivers in the
Yeah,
world. You can keep it within the white lines.
yeah. So
And oh,
I think
there you go.
Fernando Alonso didn't get any, Verstappen didn't get any, Leclerc didn't get any,
Yeah,
and they may not have been the drivers under pressure, but equally they also weren't slipping back. Like, they weren't losing time for it.
yeah. I mean, it shouldn't be difficult, especially if you are given the penalties, given the warnings as well. I think that would personally be my only issue with how they dealt with it, in that the penalties after the race, I think, are
Yeah,
possibly a bit harsh. Because let's say you are Esteban Ocon, for example, you've done the 71 laps, you've assumed you haven't got any penalties. And if, let's say, if you are doing something on one lap, and you don't get a penalty, you're gonna think it's fine. You're gonna
yeah.
keep doing it, which is why he probably ended up with so
With
many
so many.
penalties. And I think that's possibly it is a bit harsh on
Yeah,
Ocon, because if he's just assuming, oh, I'm doing this, it's fine, he's gonna do it lap after lap after lap.
that's.
But if
I
it
wouldn't be
adds up,
shocked to see Alpine or someone say, "Look, we know that he went out the lines, but we weren't told he was, so he wouldn't know to change it." But it's the one thing they could look at doing is, because it's such a short track and you have so many laps, so they could maybe look at, rather than there being a set number of it's 3 and then penalty, they could say, okay, because it's such a short lap and it's so frequent, we'll make it 5 and some, we'll make it 2 and say
mm,
Spa or something. It's like
yeah,
you are more likely to go out of the lines 3 times in 71 laps.
yeah, that's a good point actually, and especially when it is two corners that are being so heavily policed. I mean, obviously turn 10, I think, was the most infringed corner, but even turn 9 as well claimed a few victims. It did just seem like the FIA didn't maybe predict how many infringements they were being, because as far as I could tell, they were doing it manually as well. And you think
Yeah,
the pinnacle of motorsport could put a few sensors along those white lines, where just if obviously realistically the cars are going to be on the white line as they should be. So surely you just have a sensor where if a car goes onto it, then it stays on it, stays on it, stays on it, and if it goes off it, then you just automatically delete the lap and automatically give a warning. But they didn't seem to be doing that.
no, it's a tricky one to try and police though. Fine. If you have a sensor, for example, how would you define that it's been cut twice and it's by a same car or a different car or something? It's a bit of a tricky one to kind of do. It's it's a bit silly. I think if you're gonna have it, have someone on that every lap,
Mhm.
and they can just watch it and just click every time, click a
Yeah,
button.
yeah. It seemed really odd, and obviously you'd think that the drivers could stay in the lines. I mean, the stewards under their document were like, they in steward language, they were like, you need to sort this out for next year, because they don't want to be doing that sort of thing again. So what do you think they can do? Obviously, I think the big problem is MotoGP really hate gravel traps, and
Yeah,
that is the obvious solution. Because surprisingly, you saw no track limits violations at turn 4. It's amazing
yeah,
how that happens.
yeah. It's it's an interesting one. They could. I wouldn't be shocked if F1 like, we want you to change the layout of the circuit and just make it a hairpin
Mm,
and
really?
just combine it into one corner, because
Well, like
it's
sort
all
of
asphalt. It's all asphalt
like
there anyway.
Parabolica-esque
Yeah,
in a
pretty
way.
much. I would hate that. I think that's the worst thing they could do. So I like both the corners they have. I think they're technically difficult. I think one thing they could do that might help it slightly is change the pit lane entry.
Yeah,
Because
That
like you are
entry's
having to avoid cars as they come in, and it is quite dangerous. Like that needs to be addressed anyway. As a separate issue. They need to fix that. But you can't just cover a gravel trap.
What do you think about the ideas of like a strip of gravel and then asphalt?
I think that's
With
more
that,
dangerous for the bikes.
mm,
They'll just flip.
which
Oh,
is
all
the
the cars.
problem.
The cars will just flip.
Yeah, I mean that is the problem, and don't seem to be many solutions.
So make them sharper curbs.
Mm.
Was it Qatar where they had it just destroyed the tires?
Yeah, actually, not
Yeah,
like sausage curbs, but we want those like razor curbs.
serrated ones. Yeah,
Yes, the razor curbs. I mean
yeah,
that
and just
is
basically make the curbs the width of the car. And what you do is you make the very outside of the curb create a puncture. So at the car's width, and if they clip it, then they've got to come into the pits. That's it. That's the problem
that'd be a
solved.
it'd be a bad place to get puncture as well, because that's right at the
Yeah,
end of the lap.
the whole lap into the wall, into the gravel. You're at the race.
Made them do long laps at turn one, because I think they've got the MotoGP long lap layout where you just keep going at turn one, and then
Oh,
you
what?
sort
And
of
then
do a
like the
weird
chicane
corner.
as well.
Yeah,
That's so dangerous though, weaving in and out of the chicane.
no, it's not probably not the best idea. I like the idea of the Qatar curbs, and like as long as you make them really different from sausage curbs, because we
Yeah,
don't like
sausage curbs
sausage
really bad.
curbs. It's
Yeah, I
just
don't
it
think
would
there's
be
much else.
solved if they just stayed between the white lines.
This is the thing. This is a driver issue.
Mm.
This is quite literally a skill error.
It's a skill issue.
Yeah, this is drivers not liking to stay in the white lines, and it's the drivers that never seem to like to stay in the white lines.
Mm. I mean, Yuki got penalties. He got some last year as well. Esteban Ocon, as we mentioned, got about. Well, he set the new record for most individual penalties in a race
From himself.
from himself and Pastor Maldonado.
I want to know what the most penalties in a season for one driver and or team is. Alpine must have
Ooh.
a lot.
Well, I was thinking about this. If they were still giving out like penalty points for these, about half the grid wouldn't be racing at Silverstone. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of solutions, and I mean, do you think they will come up with one, or do you think we'll sort of forget about it till we get to Austria next year? And we're like,
They'll do something dramatic that will upset a lot of people, and we'll just have to
nice.
accept it.
We love the FIA. They love doing that sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
Maybe they'll just make everyone have to come through the pit lane or something.
Oh gosh, they were doing that for whole. Oh no, they were doing that on lap one. That was
For the safety car with the debris.
it was an odd safety car. It was probably a bit
It's because it was the
premature.
first lap, so they're all tightly packed. But there was debris right across turn one.
Yeah,
So,
I
'cause
think it made sense.
it's a short lap, so I get why, and I get why they had to come through the pit lane. So
No, yeah, the pit lane decision made complete sense. But we'll move on to the teams now. Red Bull, yeah, Max won. He
yeah,
just won. He doesn't do much anymore apart from win.
yeah, got the fast lap again.
Show off. No,
Yeah.
it is very impressive.
It was utter domination again.
Yeah, again.
It's
Can
just track.
anything stop him?
Silverstone, the British Grand Prix can because he's never won
The
that.
Br-
He's never won
he
the
won
British
the
Grand Prix.
yeah, he won the 70th anniversary one,
So
but
that was,
not even Monza could stop him last season.
the Monza
Ooh,
curse might
the
though.
Monza curse. I hadn't thought of that. Right, I'll take Verstappen
That
out
or
my
the
fantasy team for
the
Monza.
Bahrain winner curse as well.
I think he might break that.
Yeah, and probably Monza with his
And
Red
probably
Bull,
Monza.
with the only car that will actually work with DRS in a straight line.
Oh my gosh, I'm scared of that. Now Vegas. Now we've seen the Vegas on the F1 game.
Oh, it's horrible.
That straight is so long. Those engines are going to be blowing up left, right, and centre.
Oh no! Don't talk to me about blowing up engines. It's gonna be hot. It's gonna be in the middle of the desert, and Ferrari are gonna find a way to blow up all engines in all their cars.
Yeah, but we'll come to the teammate quickly, who did a typical Perez performance, as in be really bad at qualifying, do as well as he should in the race because he's in a Red Bull, and then get driver of the day shouts.
Yeah. Every week without fail.
Every week. It is amazing how Hulkenberg's been in Q3 more than Perez.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
that's one thing. As much as people maybe thought Valtteri Bottas wasn't the most competitive teammate to Lewis Hamilton during the Mercedes period, he never failed to make Q3 ever.
No, he was always competitive. Maybe not in race
Yeah,
trim, but in quality trim, he
he was
was always
actually.
there.
I think he's got one of the lowest pole to win conversion rates. I think he
Yeah.
was pretty
Him and
actually pretty good
Leclerc.
in qualifying. Yeah, but well, hopefully Leclerc makes up for it at some point. I can't see Bottas
He
changing his.
has.
Yeah, but I mean Perez again, just disappointing.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. I mean, it was Horner. It was like, you've had 2 track limits, just stay in the lines. It's not
Yeah,
difficult. It's just, I think the pressure is getting to him now. But
I
I
mean
don't know. Yeah.
it's kind of ironic because now the pressure should be off because he isn't going to win the world championship. He's
But
what
it's more about a
80.
seat now.
That's a good. That's a good point. Do you think maybe De Vries also struggling takes the pressure off Perez a tiny bit?
No, because I think
Because,
Sonoda's doing well.
oh, what you reckon Sonoda might go into the
Sonoda
Red
or
Bull?
Albon. He's still got Red
I
Bull links.
think Albon will go back.
Still got Red Bull on his helmet.
See,
Yeah.
I haven't seen Alex's Albon's helmet much.
I don't know if he does this year. I know he did last year, actually.
I think he's fully left the Red Bull setup as far as I'm
He might have done
aware.
this year, but he definitely still had it on. There was definitely still a sponsor for him.
Mm.
But
But yeah, I mean Perez. Like maybe, I mean, do you even think Verstappen's dominance is also helping Perez in that realistically, Perez struggling would cost them P1 in the Constructors' Championship
this is
because
the thing.
they
If
don't get like points for P1. They don't get
yeah,
point or money for the drivers.
no,
And Verstappen's winning the Constructors on his own by a significant margin.
for now. This thing, if Ferrari can really get that act together the second half of the season, because I think they're the only team that might win a race other than Red Bull.
Mm,
Merck seem to think they can at Silverstone. After last week, I'm not so sure.
that's adorable. I mean, I want them to, but
Yeah,
they
Toto
probably
was
won't.
asked at Canada, if you're going to win one race, what will it be? He's like, Silverstone, we'll win Silverstone. Like, no, you won't.
We're gonna come back here in a week and they're gonna have like 1-2 that I'm
Yeah,
gonna have to like apologize for these statements.
yeah.
But no,
But
I can't see them winning Silverstone.
no, I think that Red Bull, and even the Ferrari is looking better and better each week. Like, their
Yeah,
strategy is getting better as well. Like, they're not. I think Vasseur is finally showing what it's becoming his team rather than
yeah.
Benotto's.
When it just seems everyone's upgrades are working. Ferrari's upgrades worked.
Yeah.
McLaren's have at least for this race, and I know Norris and Austria go better together than a
Well,
lot of things.
just speaking about Merck, they're supposed to be the only one that hasn't really.
And, yeah, do you think? I mean, do you think it was upgrades? Do you think it was setup? Like,
They weren't
'cause
great in Austria last year.
they've never really been great in Austria. Like 2019, they struggled. Obviously, 2020 they did win, but then that 2020 Merc was a rocket ship. In
Yeah.
21, both races were very Verstappen
But
dominated.
this week they were behind an Aston Martin, which is notoriously bad in a straight line.
Mm,
And they would have been behind both had Stroll not been done in by the pit stops.
yeah, and it's Lance Stroll. So,
So you can kind of.
yeah.
Yeah, I think Merck have almost gone backwards in my eyes. I think the idea was that they'd be better and more competitive, like in a straight line.
Do you think they maybe? Do you think they've gone backwards because everyone else has gone forwards? In a way,
I think they've been too busy trying to catch up and worried about their design philosophy and everything that everyone else has been able to spend their time improving their car and they've been fixing it almost.
Yeah.
Like they've had to start from. They're basically what Ferrari were this time last year.
Oh no. It'd
Not
be
in terms of
impossible.
but in terms of like performance. Like they
Yeah,
like Ferrari are much further ahead than where they were this time last year, and it
yeah,
shows. But Merc haven't progressed that much.
yeah, and especially now with McLaren, their upgrades potentially working. Alpine struggled, but they've shown promise
I
as
thought
well.
Alpine were okay. They were what, ninth, and they would have.
I think they
Ocon
were,
was what, 11th or 12th? Would have
I think,
been.
yes, something like that. I think it
They're
was
not.
all, I think the track's quite unique, Austria, because it's
Yeah,
at altitude, very short, very fast flowing corners. It's not maybe one you can draw too many conclusions from.
no. My concern, if I'm Mercedes, is why are Williams so much faster in a straight line than we are
Hmm.
for the
That's
second
the
year in a row?
that's the question that baffles most people is why are Williams so fast in a straight line? It's because
Yeah,
they've got no downforce. It's just their
that's true.
floor's flat.
Yeah,
The air can just flow under it.
yeah. But
No,
yeah, if they're not fastest overall, but Lando Norris and that improved Merc was comfortably quicker than the Mercedes once it got past them. Once he got past them, sorry.
yeah, Norris had a very good race.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Well, he
ending
loves
up
that track.
in yeah, his first podium. He's always gone well there. I mean, maybe bring it back to Mercedes for a final few minutes. But George Russell, just a very. I don't think I saw Russell once. I think he
No.
overtook someone and then just drove on his own for the majority of it.
Yeah.
Lewis Hamilton did complain a lot, and it
Yeah.
wasn't great.
No, it was embarrassing. I think it
Yeah.
was. It was just accept that, like, just put up with it almost. Like, you don't. This is what most drivers have their whole career.
Mm,
Like, it's almost just entitled and like privileged. Like, he's kind of in the position where he's like, I should have a good car. Like, no, you have to work for it.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm a Hamilton fan, and
Yeah.
personally, I think complaining about the car, I don't think is on because obviously people have put time and effort into building it, and I think Toto was right to come on the radio and say, "Yeah, Lewis, we know we're not having a good race. We know the car's not very good this weekend. Just drive, and we can discuss it." Personally, I had less issue with him talking about other drivers' track limits because
I
I
had no
think
issue with that.
every
Everyone was
driver does
doing it.
that now.
Yeah, it was the complaining about
Yeah.
kind of complaining about his own track limits to start with. Like that was the
Mm.
problem, and kind of complaining that he couldn't avoid it. I'm like, yeah, well, you can because you've done it on some laps, but it was the fact like, what does he want them to do mid race? Like, you're not going to
Yeah.
bring them in and change setup. I said, because I was watching it, I went home for the weekend. I said to my dad, like, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he came over the radio on his in lap when they told him he was out. I was like, oh, should we just not enter the sprint race, guys, and save the engine? Like,
Yeah.
that would have been the most Lewis thing to do, like the last 2 seasons.
Yeah. And it is yeah, it's just it does get to the point where you're like you've sort of just got to say this is how it's going to be maybe for this weekend. We might go to Silverstone and have the best car ever built.
Yeah,
Like it's unlikely, but
but
it's
you
a
don't know that.
possibility.
Yeah,
And you're still going to get some points out of it. Then maybe not going to be as many as you want, but it's still going to be some points. And
it's still
it's
important. Yeah,
still helpful for the World Championship and their battle with Aston Martin and probably Ferrari when they continue to get their act together and continue to climb up the standings and get back into contention. And every point is going to count. Like that
yeah,
point that Russell didn't get over Ocon may be crucial by the end of the season. And just it is what it is. I know we're probably saying it to a very competitive person and like the height of adrenaline, but there is nothing the team can do about it. And I think that was good management by Toto when he came on the radio and said, "Lewis, we know there's nothing we can do about it. So if you could just drive, we'll talk about it after, and we'll sort something out."
yeah. it's not like they've made the car bad on purpose, because
Mm.
they're all equally as frustrated as he is. Like, I get that you're the one driving it and it's your name, but it's the team. Like, it's not like George Russell was miles ahead of him. He was the lead car,
Yeah.
and you're complaining. Like, George didn't say anything. It's like the first good thing George Russell's done in like 2 months was to not
Yeah.
complain.
I mean, yeah, Russell, and that's another thing as well. Lewis has definitely had Russell George's number for the past few months as well. If like I don't know how they do like sort of inter-team finishing positions and whatever with all the penalties post race, but even before the penalty when Lewis did finish ahead of George, it was 7-2 in terms of finishing. I think Lewis is now 5-4 in terms of qualifying. He's got Russell's number. There's no need to be complaining as much as he possibly did, especially after just one like average race. And they've done well for the last few races as well.
Yeah. I could have understood if he came out and in the post-race interview and went, like, you know what, it was a hard weekend for us. The car wasn't performing as well as we'd like, and we just picked up some valuable points. Then fair enough. You know what, you can say that the car wasn't peak and you would have liked it a bit better, but you don't complain every 3 laps that, oh, this is wrong, oh, this is bad, oh, this doesn't work. Like, it's just demoralizing. The team aren't going to want to work for you if you're like that.
Yeah. I mean, there's not really much else to say about Mercedes. They did averagely. I think they were obviously targeting more than they got, and I think they'll look at themselves and they'll probably come back at Silverstone because even without all the cars being as they are, Silverstone's always been a strong track for Mercedes, a strong track for Lewis. They'll have like a mind-boggling amount of home support, and hopefully they can do well.
Well, the fight for second in the constructors is now very close because Ferrari had the most points again, but they're still a little bit off. But Aston Martin caught up, so it's now Mercer on 178, Aston are 3 behind on 175, and then Ferrari are 21 points behind on 154.
But you'd say Ferrari potentially have the best car.
Ferrari have the momentum, the best car. Like, Ferrari could come out of Silverstone in second. Like, Ferrari could finish second and third, and I don't think Aston will have a great race at Silverstone. And if Merc don't do great, that can swing very quickly.
Yeah. And I mean, Ferrari, we'll maybe talk about them quickly. They were just good. They didn't really have a race that was that notable. They were just good and they did well. Sainz on Perez's battle, that was a bit embarrassing from Sainz. Complaining about being intimidated.
I didn't like Sainz as well, complaining that he should be let fast because he was actually dropping off in the bit of the track where he wasn't getting DRS. You have, I think it was they said on commentary that you have 35% of the lap is DRS.
Yeah.
So that's just going to tag you along so well.
Yeah. There's a lot of complaining this weekend.
Yeah. But
yeah,
what can you do?
It was to be honest, it was another fairly standard, predictable race in a way. There wasn't much that was like unpredictable.
No, I think the teams you'd expect. The only thing that you wouldn't have said at the start of the weekend was Lando Norris to be fourth.
No, that was probably the biggest thing out of the weekend. And for McLaren especially, that has to be really good signs that they're not only improved, but they're potentially on their day, and maybe not even on their day, maybe now regularly, they can compete with the top like second to fourth teams like Mercedes, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Aston Martin as well. And when Piastri gets those upgrades, which will come, I don't know if he'll must get them in Silverstone, maybe.
You'd hope so because it's a home race. They've probably saved them for Silverstone, but he'll definitely have them for Hungary and Spa, you'd expect.
Yeah.
At the end of the month.
And if he does get them, then we
think Hungary is a track they could go very well at if you're McLaren.
Yeah. And we've seen Piastri is a very competent driver. He is able to perform, and if they can be up there, then it's going to be bode well for McLaren in their battle with Alpine as well.
I think by the end of the season that we will see McLaren ahead of Aston Martin. That's my
Aston Martin.
I think Aston is the fourth team. Not in constructors in terms of.
Oh, not in the constructor. Okay.
In terms of potentially the fourth best team.
Yeah, I think it's hard to judge because I do think that Austria is quite a unique track. It's obviously at altitude. It's very similar to like Interlagos in a way, but they're very different times of the year. Obviously, Brazil right at the end of the season.
Very different temperatures.
Yeah, but no, it could be McLaren could be up there. Anyone else have a good race? I'm trying to remember. It was a very sort of standard race.
Yeah, there was nothing that was outstanding.
Just it was good overtaking. That was good.
It was funny watching Perez get mugged off by Sainz several times though. After Max did it the first time on Leclerc, knowing exactly what he was doing.
You just gotta stay behind before the corner.
Yeah.
Go into the corner. And then
you've got the go DRS. Into the final of the 3 straights with DRS.
Yeah. No. We've started. Yep. Any potential driver of the days, and then we'll do stuff left to be desired for some drivers. I think Norris. He obviously did get driver of the day, but definitely deserved it.
Yeah.
I
thought Verstappen as well.
Yeah, he has to be.
Yeah, I think people complain that he'd win it every time, but I think I get that it's a dominant car, but he's not even trying. He is just in a groove.
And that is the thing. It's you're complaining that he's winning every time, but why is he winning every time, and why are you complaining about it?
Why isn't his teammate winning?
Yeah, it's because he's been so good.
Yeah,
it's because he's been so dominant, and that's why he's probably going to win his third world title.
Yeah,
is that he granted he does have perhaps less competition than maybe we'd like, but regardless of that fact, he's still dominating. He's not making any mistakes whatsoever.
No. That's the thing. It'd be so easy for him just to switch off, or to not be able to have that fight. But I think every time someone's tried to challenge him or been close, he has shown that he can just pull away again.
Yeah, and that's completely fair enough for him. Who else? Albon, I think, had another good race in 11th.
Yeah, and that Williams.
He might struggle.
I don't think anyone had an outstanding race, really.
No. And then obviously the drivers that potentially had worse races, I think Lewis didn't. No, Ocon. I think you've got to give Ocon a bad race because he got 30 seconds of time penalties.
Yeah. De Vries wasn't again.
Yeah, but that's Nick De Vries. De Vries. Anyone?
Piastri can't come on.
No, I think it's harsh to say Piastri had a bad race if they don't have the upgrades.
So Perez, he took a bit longer than he probably should have to get through the field.
Well, I mean, he didn't finish second, which is probably a bad race for him in that Red Bull.
Yeah.
And 50, I'm sorry, but 3 deleted laps.
Yeah, it's just silly. That was a bad weekend for Perez. You can say what you want. He got some points, but it's still a bad weekend.
Then he blamed Albon, I think.
Probably.
For giving him wash out the final corner. It's not something you can complain about.
No.
But no, I think that's been Austria. Again, decent race, very predictable, which I think is becoming the story of the season, and it's something we might touch upon at some point.
It was still exciting though. You had for the first half race, you had 4 or 5 car battles where it's just chaos, and you thought that all of the drivers were going to crash.
Yeah, I think they've just got too good. They just don't crash anymore.
There's also not enough reliability issues.
Because that was the third retirement in, or like
5
fourth
races.
in 5 races or something.
Yeah, something silly like that.
They need less engines, just one engine for the entire season.
Oh my god, could you imagine the chaos?
Yeah. Right, we'll do some of the other news as well. The McLaren Chrome livery,
I quite
uh,
like it.
very disappointing.
I
Okay, we're gonna have
like
to
it.
disagree. No, it's so much. It could have been so much better.
It could have been, but I like that if you're going to keep it remotely similar to this one, I like how they've done it. I never liked the
They
blue on the car anyway.
they've just changed the blue to chrome. They
This
could have done
this
something more
this
original.
livery is what their livery should have been.
Mm, yeah,
It
I
shouldn't
mean,
have been a special livery. It
I
should just be
prefer it.
their livery.
I prefer it to the McLaren livery, but then I
Yeah,
also really dislike the McLaren livery.
yeah.
It's the amount of sponsors on it is ridiculous.
It's American.
It's just like someone sticker bombed the entire thing.
Yeah,
It's not my favorite, but hopefully, I mean, McLaren and special liveries tends to go well, as
how
far as
they
I
do
can
in Monaco?
remember. They have the Golf livery in Monaco. That went pretty well.
Well,
They
Monaco just
did that. Oh yeah, they had some at the start of the season, didn't they?
they had a Monaco and Spain. It was meant to be Imola as well. They had like the triple crown liveries.
Yeah.
That was
Oh,
quite
I
ugly.
that was just AlphaTauri with an orange rear wing.
Yeah.
I think I've said it before, but I switched on practice, and I was like, when did AlphaTauri get an orange rear wing? Did I miss that bit of news? And then I realized it was the McLaren.
Yeah.
No, but hopefully it does well
Hopefully they
for
do
them. And
well.
then
It'll be nice.
yeah, and then yeah, some tragic news. Obviously that
Yes.
also took place over the weekend. So Delano Van Hoff did die in a crash in Fracas again at Spa in wet conditions. Obviously, our thoughts go out to his family and the team MP Motorsport, who have, I think, pulled out of the next race out of respect for him. He was just 18 years old. And again, it raises questions. Obviously, we had Antoine Hubert losing his life in Formula 2 in 2019. It again raises questions about the safety of the Spa-Francorchamps or Spa circuit. Do things need to be changed? Obviously, it was exceptionally wet at the time of the incident, or sort of wet we think back to in Belgium 2021. So maybe questions raised as to why they were racing in those conditions, especially as we did see back in 2021 with F1 not ending up racing there, and the safety of the circuit as a whole. Do changes need to be made to Eau Rouge and Radion and the Camel Straight? And Lance Stroll coming out saying very, very much in favour of those changes being made. So, I mean, what do you think? The difficult one to talk about.
I mean, obviously, as you said, I think it's the most important thing is that our thoughts and prayers go out to his family and the team, because obviously it's not a very nice time. It's first of all, the race should have been red flagged. I think we learned that from Spa when F1 went there a few years ago. I think that would have been the most sensible thing to do. In terms of the circuit, it's two very horrible incidents in the space of a short time, but we hadn't had an incident like that for a long time before it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yes, these cars are getting faster and more dangerous, but they are freak accidents. No one wants to see them, and obviously safety does need to be thought about. But there is this risk associated with motorsport. It's like the drivers almost want it to be there, not to the sense that it has been in those accidents, but they want to be on the edge. They want to be kind of pushing the limits of not necessarily safety, but kind of what is sensible. And kind of the only thing that you probably could do is look at the barrier and maybe increase the runoff a bit more, widen the runoff either side, and maybe look at having a barrier that rather than spitting you back out across the road will just absorb the car.
Yeah.
Because it's very rare that you see one car go in there, let alone two in a lap. So I think you can remove them safely.
Yeah, and I think the first question is the weather. Like you see photos of what the weather was like, and it's completely blind. It's obviously Spa, the way the track is, it's in those trees. The trees will trap the moisture within them, and that just keeps the visibility at zero. And when we didn't race there in 2021, I think most people had more of an issue with the handling of how the points were given out, how refunds, and obviously those 3 laps behind the safety car, should they have been counted? Should it have even been counted as a race or not? I think most people were fine with it being red flag because the rain that day was torrential. And it is something we saw this weekend, and you do question that if if the 20 best drivers in the world in F1, it's not a judge for them to safely drive around that track. Why was it in this case that a regional series with drivers that are up and coming, that are still fairly inexperienced, why they were adjudged to potentially, or why it was adjudged for them to be safe to go round the track? I mean, questions about the circuit. It is a very difficult one. Obviously, Eau Rouge and Radion are iconic corners, and the incident was a bit further up the Kemmel Straight, but safety can always be improved, and hopefully the governing body, the FIA, do decide on a course of action that does improve safety and that does does make it so that this incident will never happen again. Maybe introducing limits on the amount of rain the drivers can race in, on changing, as you say, the barriers to potentially not spit those cars back out onto track, and anything else besides that. But again, our thoughts and prayers go out to Delano's family and friends, and obviously the team as well, and everyone that he has worked with. So we'll now move on to Silverstone. Obviously, the next race of the season, F1 returning to Britain for the British Grand Prix. And this is one of my favourite. I think this might be, this and Interlagos are my two favourite tracks on the calendar, because it seems that every year we get a very entertaining race out of these tracks, or this track.
Yeah, it's the best event in British sport, the best event in perhaps sport in the world that isn't a World Cup. There's 480,000 people going over the course of a weekend, which is unheard of. It's just a celebration all week. Like, I've been lucky enough to go twice. I went in 2021, and that was really interesting because the atmosphere was quite almost concerning. Like, there were cheers when Max was like sent into the barrier, which is not necessarily the thing you want to see. I think the atmosphere might be a bit hostile this weekend if Red Bull continue to dominate, but we will see. I think it will be an interesting weekend, but it's the best weekend on the calendar. It's the middle of the season. The sun or rain will be out one way or the other. You never know. The fans will be there in numbers.
Well, I mean, you think back to some of the races at the track, 2013, all the tire blowouts and everything that came from that. The 1-2 for Williams, I think, in 2015, as far as I can remember. Might have been 2015 or 2014.
Yeah, I was probably 14, I would have guessed, out of the two.
Max Verstappen going around the outside of Nico Rosberg at the end of the Maggots-Beckett complex in the wet. 2018, the huge battle between Ferrari and Mercedes after the safety car, when they were 1, 2, 3, 4, almost didn't know who was going to win. That huge battle between Verstappen and Leclerc in 2019. 2020, Lewis Hamilton finishing the race, winning the race, in fact, on 3 wheels, obviously, as you mentioned, Verstappen and Hamilton in 2021, and then Carlos Sainz last year taking his first victory of his career, and then obviously the legendary "Through Goes Hamilton" commentary. Now that I think
it was such a
I know It's an
Everyone
awful
remembers
open.
that one bit. He then ceded the position to a driver on 40-year-old hard tires on a Ferrari that hated hard tires around the outside of Cops, which was like one of the best overtakes of the season.
No, I do agree. It elevated a lot by the commentary.
Yes, and the fact it
But
was
like,
a British driver in Britain
yeah,
that drove
but
the
like,
racing line through a
yeah,
corner.
but like, here comes Sebastian Vettel with an overtake
Yeah,
on the Kemmel straight
exactly.
on lap one. It's not a difficult
It's
overtake
an
to make, but
iconic
it's made so
moment
much.
of commentary.
Yes,
It's just poor racing by Perez that causes all of it. It's not Hamilton doing something exceptional.
no, yeah, no, I'll completely agree with that. But it is something you do now remember
Oh, of
when we
course.
go to Silverstone. I love that F1's first like post about Silverstone was the Hamilton Verstappen crash, and it's an
Yeah,
interesting one to go for.
yeah. I mean, the thing that everyone forgets that year is Charles Leclerc actually took the lead and was
Mm.
on pole for the restart, which was
Well,
amazing. I was so gassed, but
he was 3 laps away from winning the thing, I think.
he wasn't far. Yeah, I think it was like 3 laps from Lewis. But
Mm.
I will always be of the opinion that Lewis got away lightly that day.
I can yeah, I think it
I
always
think
opens up.
a 10-second time penalty is not.
Mm.
You look at what the penalties that have just been given out for the last weekend for running wide.
Yeah,
It puts it into a different sort of light for the same penalty.
I always think it just opens the can of worms about actual
Yeah,
like the consequences of an incident and stuff
yeah,
like
of
that.
course.
I can get how people think that.
It will get a bit fiddly, but I don't think you can send someone to hospital
Mm.
and get a 10-second and still win the race. I think that just feels wrong.
Yeah, I think, but and then that opens up another can of worms about should a how does a penalty a penalty if the driver and the
Yeah,
car is good enough to overcome it?
exactly. Because that
So,
Merc was still a rocket ship that day.
mm, well, we'll move
Yeah,
away from
yes. We'll move
2021.
away. We'll move away from this.
Right, and we'll go to our prediction. We'll start with our predictions for Austria. And
Wow. Well,
have been,
Chinmay.
I have horrifically lost this weekend. Teammates
Let's,
have been brilliant.
let's find them. Right, I can't remember which ones were yours and which ones were his.
So he had the Verstappen win.
Okay, right. So Chinmay went for a Verstappen Leclerc Sainz podium.
That was incredibly close to being
It
perfect.
looked very close to actually happening.
Mm.
So
So that's 6 points.
yeah. And you went a Perez Alonso Hamilton, which is
That's
one.
1 point, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Chinmay's clawing back your gap, your lead there.
Oh yeah, it's not just this, it's the 1, 2, and 3 as well.
Yeah. So you were 41-36 ahead before these.
Yes.
And
So
so
now
he's
it
just
is,
gained those 5 points back, so you're now
yeah,
tied
it's now
before the
42.
1, 2, and 3 point predictions.
Oh no.
So your 1 point prediction was a driver complains about smoke.
No. I can't believe I'm so annoyed that I forgot that Austria is always time penalty central. And I completely forgot about that for my predictions.
Yeah.
But no drive. There wasn't actually that much like pretty I
Huh?
think they banned flare. I don't think there was that much smoke. They banned flares. They still got them in
Yeah,
because
I think they were also limited to the end of the race as well.
yeah.
So that nothing happened during the race. Yeah, Chinmay didn't get his either because he said Ferrari would get a double points finish in the sprint race.
Did they
I
not?
don't believe Charles Leclerc did.
Hang on, let me find the Austria sprint race
Because he
results.
pitted behind everyone. That's top 8, isn't it, for a sprint
It
race?
is top 8. Trying to find the results.
And he was definitely behind Russell.
Um, he was 12th, so
Yeah.
no 1 point.
So no 1 point for either of you.
We're so good at this.
Yeah,
Oh
really.
yeah, we're gonna come on to we'll get onto the 3 points and we'll redeem ourselves.
So Chinmay's 2-pointer was a Williams Q3 in one of the qualies.
think I spoke to him. I think they did
I'm going to double
in
check this.
the sprint qualifying, I want to say, or the actual.
I would have guessed sprint because you think both the Mercs were out.
Trying to find the results.
Probably
should.
No, not in the sprint one.
Not in the sprint. Right. What about actual quali?
Yeah, it's really, really good podcasting right now.
Oh yeah, we're so good. We are so professional. Please hold while we currently find out the results.
Get some elevator music on.
I can't believe Verstappen didn't. Oh, Verstappen didn't get his record. He let Leclerc lose some laps.
Charles Leclerc is a genius.
It was slightly concerning that they managed to do the wrong strategy and still win by enough time to get a pit stop.
Alex Albon was 10th.
10th. Yep, so that's top 10.
Okay, so that's 2 points for Chinmay.
And
your 2 points was Verstappen doesn't win both races.
That was up. The fact that is a 2 point is now really concerning. I mean, it was still wrong.
And you didn't even get it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It was almost happened if Perez had, broke for turn 3 at the correct point.
Yeah.
In the sprint.
Now, your 3-pointer was the bottom 4 in top 4. So a driver in one of the bottom 4 teams qualifies in the top 4 for either race.
I'm honestly, that's such a good prediction, and I'm so happy I got it right.
Yeah, was it the sprint one you got it for?
Yeah, I think Hulkenberg was 4th. I will just check to confirm, but I'm like 90% sure Hulkenberg was 4th. Yep, Hulkenberg 4th, somehow. How does he do it? We don't know. The man's a god.
No one knows. Okay. And then Chinmay's was Verstappen has an absolute perfect weekend. So he leads every session and all 6 quali sessions he put on it.
So we said all 6 qualies would be 5 points.
Yes.
And I'm looking at it. He got 5 of them.
Did he not get all 6?
No, I'm on the Wikipedia page. Apparently, SQ1, Carlos Sainz was first.
That's right, because he had 1 lap and he went first.
By half a tenth.
Yeah, second. So he had issues. He had like a brake-by-wire issue and had to come in and just had 1 lap and absolutely smashed it.
Yeah.
But so he got both qualies?
He got everything else.
Did he get practice 1?
I think so. I don't know. Hang on. Practice Austria once the elevator music can come back. I think he did. As far as I can remember, he did.
I feel like he would have.
I'm pretty sure he did.
We'll say he did.
Yeah, I did. Right. We'll say he did for the moment. Was it Lewis? No, it can't have been Lewis.
Hang on. It definitely wasn't Lewis.
No, it's never Lewis. Yeah, you did. With a 105.742. So yeah, 3 points.
1. So you were tied before on 42. So neither of you got your 1 point.
Yeah.
Chinmay got his 2 point.
And I didn't.
No. And you both got your 3 points.
Yeah.
With neither of you getting your 1 point, that feels wrong.
We are good at this. My 3 point.
You got 4 points for the week.
Not great.
Chinmay got 11.
Oh my gosh.
So he now leads you by 2.
Yeah, and he was concerningly close to getting 2 more.
Yeah. Could you imagine?
It was half a tenth away.
Yeah, that's outrageous.
No, that's good predicting from Chinmay.
That's
I'll
very
have to congratulate him next week when he's back.
Yes, you will.
Yes, right. So, Silverstone predictions. I
Oh,
think it's
my
my.
first time.
Yeah, you get to go. This is where you pull out a 15-point banger. This is your audition to decide if we give you a role in predicting.
If I get a chance for next term.
Yes, after the summer break, you might make the roster.
Right,
But
so
got to
Chinmay
do
had
well.
Verstappen, so you get to go first.
Yeah, basically that's how we now realise who is the whose turn is it, who picked Verstappen P1. I'm gonna go Verstappen P1. It's a shocking one, I know.
Okay. I'm gonna go for a
You can take.
Leclerc P1 and a
Okay,
Perez P2.
good strat. I like that strat.
Well,
Um,
Leclerc does well at Silverstone. This is my thought. And Perez will probably be P2 rather than P1.
yeah, and that is how you do it. Right. I'm gonna go for a Sainz P2
Okay.
and a Hamilton P3.
Okay. So, do I think George Russell's getting a podium at Silverstone? No. I'm going to go Lando Norris P3.
Ooh.
That's my bold P3. Because I don't think it's going to be George Russell. It will be now, and I'm sorry, Chinmay, if George Russell has just lost you 3 points, but this is the sacrifice you make when you're in Scotland.
Yeah. It's a bold one. If they're upgrade, I think Silverstone's normally quite a representative one for upgrades. So if they do work, it could they could be up there.
Well, they look Lando Norris
Oscar
looks very
Piastri,
fresh.
third place.
No, I feel like if it's going to be if it's going to be someone outside of those, it will be Norris. It's going to be Alonso. It's going to be an Aston Martin now. Neither of us
Yeah,
have picked.
yeah, we haven't picked the Aston Martins. They had such a
They've,
quiet race. I've forgotten
they've,
about them.
they've not been great the last few weeks.
No, I'm sure they'll get better at some point.
Right.
Right, 1 pointers. What are you going for?
My 1 point is going to be that 2 British drivers score points. I feel like that's quite safe at the home Grand Prix. That's either both Mercs or Hamilton and Norris or something like that.
Okay.
Is that too easy or is
No,
that
no, no,
easy?
no. I think that's fair. Two British drivers. I think I
Out of
remember
4.
last year I went three British drivers on the podium, and there was 1 point where if the two Ferraris had crashed, it would have been Hamilton, Russell, Norris. One,
Oh
two,
my
three.
word.
Right, I am gonna go for both Ferraris in the top 10.
Nice. You're assuming they both finish in a very hot weekend.
I had looked at the weather. It is no, I think it gets colder on Sunday, but like Friday and Saturday, it's like 27 degrees.
Okay.
Don't know. I'll go both
Well,
Ferraris top 10.
now you're 2 point.
Right. I'm gonna go more. So actually, no, three or more DNF.
Right. The fact that that's a 2 point is.
Yeah, but have you seen the level
I
of
know. This is the
non-DNFs
thing.
of
It's
us?
so silly.
Right, three or more. I can make it four if you want.
No. 3's more than. I was going to say like 2.
No. Okay, right. Well, I'll take
We'll
three.
go with 3. We'll go with 3.
I know. I never complained about that. What are you on about?
No.
Okay.
I'm
Three or
just
more
saying
DNF.
like, the fact that you can say that and it doesn't, and that seems like a lot.
Well, the fact I could say Max Verstappen doesn't win both as a 2-pointer, and we
I
were all
know.
like, yeah, that's fine.
I know. A 2 point prediction. I'm going to go with at least 3 drivers, 3 stop.
At least three drive. So three or more drivers,
Yeah,
three or more stops.
I think that seems okay.
Yeah, no, that seems fine.
Okay.
3-pointer. What have you gone for your 3-pointer?
Oh, I've not thought this through, but
Okay.
I'm going to go with. I'm going to back my prediction of a Charles Leclerc win. Max Verstappen leads less than half the race.
Okay.
Is that worth a 3 point?
No, I think.
Which sounds outrageous. But
Less. No, I'll back
I'll
it as
go.
a
Max
lean.
Verstappen leads less than 15 laps.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'll back that. How long is still? It's like 50 odd. Is that
55, something like that.
50? Yeah, 53. I was thinking. Yeah, no, I'll accept that. I'm gonna go for a 2x2
Okay,
top eight.
interesting.
So I won't
That
specify the
completely
order.
contradicts your podium prediction.
I'm hedging my bets. Also, I can't. I don't think I could have predicted a. I could have, unless I'd done Mercedes. I don't. I can.
You
It
could
was
have
always been a
merged an
con.
Aston.
Yeah. So 2x2 top eight. So not. I'm not going to specify the order,
No,
but
yeah,
like two
like
Red Bulls, then two
Red Bull,
Ferraris.
Aston, Ferrari, Merc. Okay,
Actually, can I change it to in quali?
yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna go in quali because I feel like it's more likely to happen in quali.
So you're backing Sergio Perez to get into Q3.
Yes.
That's
This
why
is
it's
a
a three-point
terrible.
prediction.
Well, if he doesn't get into Q3, I don't think he'd get second.
He's currently got Q3 in less than half the races.
Nice.
That's embarrassing.
How is
That's
he so
outrageous.
bad? Well, it's Nico Hulkenberg having a better quali record than Perez that baffles me the most.
Yeah.
Like that man, the man's in a hat. No offense to
The
hats, they're
Albon as
not
well,
like.
actually.
Yeah, I think Norris has a better quali record.
Most people have a better quality record,
Yeah,
unless you're
but
a rookie.
Logan Sargent. Happy 4th of July to Logan Sargent.
Or have you seen on like Matt and Tommy have been doing trying to get Logan Sargent to win the World Championship?
What?
Using like the filters on like TikTok or whatever. And like basically so there's like a driver and like a car and you have to choose like the winner of that head to head and it's like a knockout to see who would win. And Tommy's been trying to get Logan Sargent to win it. And because there was 4th of July, he got to the final for the first time and lost.
Oh, who did he lose to?
I can't remember. It was someone like it. I think it was against Lewis and they were in the same car, so it's like you can't really.
Yeah, fair. To be fair to him, 13th place. Pretty good.
Yeah, it was better than normal.
Happy what is a kilometre day to Logan Sargent.
I saw a T-shirt that I thought you would like. It was just a picture of the NASCAR from Le Mans with a what is a kilometre kind of behind it, like some subscript. I was like, that is a Will Kingswood T-shirt right there.
Send me the link to that T-shirt. I might purchase it.
I will try and find it.
No, but I guess we'll quickly dive into other motorsport news before we finish. Alex Palou, what a god! That man cannot be stopped.
Yeah, I know.
4th win in 5 races, 3rd win in a row.
Fat lead.
He's like 110 points ahead, which in an IndyCar is like 200 points in F1.
No, it's 50 points for a win at IndyCar.
Yeah. Okay, maybe it is like 100 points in F1 because F1 you've got one team dominating. Like Palou, that is meant to be
It's meant to be like spec series.
Yeah. And the man is just a goat. Colton Herta predictably choked once again.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Double
back-to-back holes, didn't win either race. He's just becoming Charlotte Leclerc. It's fine.
Well, how Palou's not being linked to an F1 seat baffles me.
Well, he's got links to McLaren.
Well, yeah, that's not likely anymore. Unless Norris leaves.
Yeah, I could see him maybe going. I don't really know where he would go because he's Spanish as well, so there aren't really any F1 teams based there.
No,
he's not really got links to any like drivers or whatever.
No, well, maybe he'll just dominate IndyCar like Scott Dixon.
Yeah,
worst places to be. And then Shane Van Gisbergen breaking a 60-year-old record, winning on his debut in NASCAR.
Jeez. Streets, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in Chicago.
Yeah, JB was there.
Yeah, and he was until he got turned coming into the pit.
Huh? Oh,
he got turned coming into the pit lane, and then sort of fell back from there.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
He's been busy this year.
Yeah. I miss Garage 56. That car, I love that car. Right, we're going to have to go so I can reminisce about Garage 56 and the NASCAR Le Mans entry some more. Thank you to everyone for listening. We'll be back next week to talk Silverstone and hopefully an entertaining race as it normally is. Thank you, Will, for as ever joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, that's all right. And yeah, thank you to everyone for listening.